My name is Dawes Langford, I'm 36, and on paper, I come from a bloodline most people would kill to be part of, East Coast dynasty, generational wealth, and a last name that opens doors and rooms most people never enter. But I was never like them. Not like my sister Vivica, all ice and inheritance, groomed from birth to rule over everything with a smile sharp enough to cut steel. I grew up in the same mansion, ate at the same table, but I was always the outsider, the one who didn't quite fit, like a detail no one could explain but everyone quietly agreed didn't belong. They said I looked too different, asked questions about timelines they thought I wouldn't hear. I told myself I didn't care. I left, built my own fortune, disappeared for 18 years. But then my father died. And my sister forced a DNA test, not to prove I was in, but to prove I was out. What she didn't know was that the truth she was trying to weaponize was about to bury her. The email came in at 2:13 a.m. No subject. No greeting. Just a PDF attachment with the Harper family crest burned into the header, and a signature that made my jaw tighten, Martin Ezra, longtime estate lawyer and my father's legal pit bull. You are summoned for the reading of Arthur Langford Harper's final will and testament. Nothing more. I hadn't heard my father's name spoken aloud in years. Seeing it on paper was like someone had carved it into my skin with a pen. 3 hours later, I was behind the wheel of a black Lexus, speeding through the Rhode Island coastline under clouds so thick they pressed the sky shut. The ocean crashed somewhere below, hidden by jagged cliffs and fog that moved like ghosts. Newport wasn't just a place. It was a sentence. Harper Manor appeared over the ridge like it always had, too large, too cold, too perfect. The kind of place where silence had its own echo. A place where secrets aged in marble. The iron gate opened without a sound. The gravel under my tires didn't crunch, it whispered. As I stepped out, the front door opened. A woman in all black stood there. Hair in a perfect twist. Red lipstick like war paint. Vivica. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You actually came. I didn't respond. She tilted her head. I was worried you might be too busy counting your little startup millions to come claim what's never been yours. I looked past her into the entryway. The chandelier still sparkled like it was waiting for a wedding. Or a funeral. She moved aside, letting me pass. The family's in the conservatory. We didn't delay dinner. Of course not. Inside, every surface gleamed. Every frame still held photos that didn't include me. We passed a group of cousins I didn't recognize. They stopped whispering as I walked by, like a switch had flipped. The conservatory was too warm. A trick for the plants. Or for interrogations. Martin Ezra stood at the head of the long table, reading glasses halfway down his nose. Mr. Langford. We're just beginning. Beside him, Emerson Cross. Still in perfect gray. Still unreadable. He nodded once, but his fingers were curled too tightly around a glass of water. Vivica took her seat at the center, crossing her legs like a queen reclaiming her throne. And then she did it. She stood. Before we proceed, she said, voice smooth as silk, I believe a matter of legitimacy needs to be addressed. My blood went cold. I'm requesting that Dawes take a DNA test. She turned to the table. To confirm that he is, in fact, our father's biological child. There were gasps. Not many. Just enough to hurt. I looked at Martin. He didn't blink. The estate is in excess of $2.3 billion. Mr. Harper amended his will 6 months ago to include a clause, all claimants to the estate must undergo DNA verification, should any party demand it. She smiled like she'd won. Of course, she said sweetly, if you have nothing to hide, you'll have no objection. I stood there, jaw locked. Every pair of eyes in the room was on me. Waiting. Then I nodded. Fine. The room exhaled. But if we're testing me, I added, we're testing everyone. That smile of hers? It cracked for half a second. She didn't expect that. Deal, she snapped, too fast. Martin raised a hand. Samples will be collected immediately. Results within 72 hours. Until then, no decisions will be made. Everyone sat. But no one relaxed. Dinner continued, silent except for forks on porcelain and the faint creak of wind against glass. I didn't taste anything. Across from me, Vivica kept glancing down, at her phone, at Emerson, at something under the table. She was too calm. Like someone who knew exactly how this would end. She leaned forward once, almost tender. You never should have come back. The test kit sat on the mahogany table like a loaded gun. Martin handed it to me with surgical calm, but I could feel the pressure behind his polite tone. The kind of pressure that said, sign this, spit here, give us your blood, or walk away forever. I signed. Swabbed. Sealed it. The room stayed silent, save for the subtle click of Martin snapping the container shut. Vivica leaned back into her chair. Smiling. Her fingers tapped the edge of her wine glass in perfect rhythm, like she was counting seconds until I disappeared again, this time legally, finally, permanently. No one else spoke. Not Fiona, our older cousin with the perfect manicure and even sharper eyes. Not Emmett, the cousin who never said much but watched everything. And definitely not Emerson Cross, the man who now stood half a step behind Vivica like a bodyguard who never got paid to smile. Martin cleared his throat. Results within 72 hours. Until then, the estate is in freeze status. No financial movements. No transfers. No exceptions. I stood. Room still cold, I said, glancing around, but at least the knives are out. Vivica's eyes didn't blink. Truth is cleansing, dolls. You'll see that soon enough. That night, I stayed in the East Wing. The same guest room I'd slept in the last time I was here, 17, angry, halfway packed before anyone even knew I was leaving. It hadn't changed. Same cold blue walls. Same antique mirror with the crack running through it like a lightning scar. Same set of dust over lavender, like someone tried to cover up Rob with perfume. I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing things. Not voices, but footsteps. Slow. Measured. Down the hallway. Past the door. Stopping. I opened it fast once. No one. The second time, I didn't. Instead, I went down the servants' stairs, barely lit, carved into the back of the manor like an afterthought. The hall twisted and narrowed until I reached the kitchen. Empty. Except Beatrice. She stood at the counter, steeping tea. Not for herself. 2 cups. She didn't jump when I stepped in. You drink chamomile now? I asked. She handed me the second cup without looking. You won't find peace in that room, she said. It wasn't built for someone like you. I sipped. What was it built for? To erase things, she said simply. Rooms like that are made to swallow people. We moved in silence through the hallway toward the study. The real one. The one that had been locked since Arthur had his first stroke and Vivica changed all the passcodes. But Beatrice? She pulled a brass key from her pocket. No hesitation. You kept it? I asked. She didn't answer. Just slid the key in. Click. The door opened with a creak that sounded like breath being held too long. Inside, the air was dry and heavy. Papers still sat on Arthur's desk, real ones. Handwritten. Legal pads, ink-stained letters. A laptop from at least a decade ago, covered in dust. I didn't sit. I scanned. Old bank records. Some dating back 20 years. Folders labeled private holdings, offshore, Vivica custody papers, never filed. I froze. What? I pulled the folder. Flipped it open. Blank signature lines. Drafts of adoption filings. No final seals. Notes in Arthur's handwriting. Vivica adopted under false pretense? Octavia lied about paternity? Another paper, dated 2008. Top right corner, DNA analysis. Subject, Vivica Harper, not biologically related to Arthur Langford Harper. I stepped back like the file burned me. Then, a soft rustle. Behind me. The door creaked. A shadow moved. I spun. Emerson. Standing in the doorway. No knock. No announcement. Just silence. His eyes landed on the folder in my hand. Looking for closure, he asked. Looking for the truth. He stepped into the room, slow. You really think this will change anything? I held the file tighter. It already has. He tilted his head. Careful, Dawes. Some truths come with prices. I took one step forward. And some lies come with consequences. He smiled, tight. You have no idea what kind of fire you're poking. And you have no idea how much I'm willing to burn. Hours later, I returned to the guest room. Beatrice was gone. On the bed, a manila envelope. No return address. No handwriting. Just one photo inside, grainy, old. A woman holding a baby. On the back, in block letters. Ask her who the father really was. My breath caught. Vivica. Same eyes. Same mouth. But the man behind the camera, a silhouette. Not Arthur. Not even close. This isn't just about proving I'm in, it's about proving someone else is out. Rain hammered the roof of the manor like fists. Morning light never made it through those windows. Just a dull gray haze, like the house refused to acknowledge anything outside its own rot. Martin Ezra stood at the head of the dining room, folder in hand. His posture was perfect. Like he'd practiced the announcement in front of a mirror. Or a firing squad. Thank you for joining, he began. No one responded. Vivica sat to his right, hair slicked back, makeup flawless. Next to her, Emerson. Always just a little too calm. Fiona and Emmett flanked the other side of the table, stiff, silent. I stood. I didn't want to sit in that house of lies. Not again. Martin opened the folder. One page. One breath. The first result is in. Everyone leaned. He cleared his throat. Dawes Langford. 99.9% biological match to Arthur Langford Harper. Boom. The silence cracked. Vivica didn't move. Her smile twitched. Fiona blinked. Emmett glanced at her. Emerson didn't flinch. Martin continued. The second test. Vivica Harper. She cut him off. Is our father's daughter. Martin looked up. Sharp. Flat. Vivica Harper. 0% biological relation to Arthur Langford Harper. The room detonated. No, Vivica snapped. That's a mistake. Run it again. She stood. Martin, this is slander. My father. Martin raised a hand. It's lab certified. Chain of custody confirmed. Witnessed. Legally binding. Vivica turned on him. You've always had a bias. Fiona stood to intervene, but Emmett grabbed her arm. Vivica spun to Emerson. Say something. He said nothing. He didn't look at her. Something inside her cracked. She screamed. You all knew. Her voice ricocheted off the glass walls. Martin calmly placed the folder down and stepped back. This concludes the formal reading for today. I didn't move. Vivica locked eyes with me. You planned this. I didn't blink. I didn't have to. She lunged. Fast. Wild. Her hand reached for the folder, to tear, destroy, burn the truth. But Emerson was faster. He caught her arm midair. Locked her wrist. Spun her toward the wall like he'd done it before. She froze. Not in pain, in recognition. Like something just clicked in her brain. I watched her face change. She looked at him not with anger, but with betrayal. You knew. His grip softened. I protected you. Her voice cracked. No. You protected the lie. Cut. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. The file from the study was still in my jacket. I opened it on the floor, cross-legged, the way I used to read comic books as a kid. It felt like a reverse origin story. One where the hero didn't find out they were special. One where they found out they'd been erased. Page after page. Notes in Arthur's handwriting. Questions. Rage. Pain. I asked for a paternity test. Octavia refused. Hired new counsel. Fired Margaret. Canceled board meeting. Emerson said not to pursue it. If Vivica isn't mine, who is she protecting? The ink thinned. The handwriting changed. Slanted. Shaky. My father had been dying. And writing through it. I went back to Martin's office after dark. No guards. No lights. Just the hum of servers behind reinforced walls. I used the back door. Still remembered the code from 15 years ago. Arthur never changed it. 0913. My birthday. The safe was behind a false shelf. Bottom drawer. Locked digitally. Martin's voice stopped me as I reached for it. You always knew where he hid the hard copies. I turned. He stood in the doorway, not surprised. Coat off. Tie loose. He trusted you, he said. Then why did he hide everything from me? Martin walked over, slow. He didn't hide it. He waited. He thought you'd never come back. I handed him the 2008 test. His eyes scanned it. He didn't flinch. He knew since then? Since Vivica's emergency transfusion. They tested for a match. Arthur wasn't it. I stared at him. He added, he never said a word. Not to the board. Not to the press. Not to me. Why? Because, Martin said, he knew the storm it would unleash. I looked at the locked drawer. And what's in there? He paused. Everything else he never said. I turned the handle. It didn't move. Martin handed me a keycard. The light turned green. Click. Inside, another envelope. Not a test. A photo. Arthur, younger, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. A child between them. A child that looked like Vivica. Behind the photo, a post-it. She wasn't mine. But I loved her until she stopped loving the truth. She tried to erase me. Because she was the imposter all along. The next morning, there was a knock on the door. Not the sharp kind, the kind meant to sound polite, but held back by someone with a secret. I opened it. Beatrice stood there, holding a tray. Black coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just like my father used to take it. I didn't order this, I said. She didn't meet my eyes. You'll want to be awake, she said. They're planning something. They? She paused. Vivica. And the board. Cut. Downstairs, the dining room was empty, but not silent. Voices echoed from the west wing. Through the hallway, behind the double doors of the old ballroom. I pressed closer. This was never supposed to be public, a voice hissed, Vivica. Then Emerson, low, we control the messaging. Delay press contact. We bury it. Martin's voice cut in. The will has spoken. The will can be contested, Vivica snapped. Another voice joined. Male. Sharp. Legal. Only if we prove coercion or fraud. Neither of which exists, yet. I stepped back. A creak. The doors shifted. Someone knew I was there. Later, Martin pulled me into his office. Locked the door behind him. You need to see this, he said, tossing a flash drive on the table. I plugged it in. It was video footage. Surveillance. Timestamp, 2 nights ago. Just after midnight. Location, study hallway. Vivica. Emerson. Whispering. She hands him something, a folder. Thick. He takes it, checks the hallway, then disappears toward the east wing. I freeze the frame. The folder. It's the one from the safe. What the hell is that? I asked. Martin didn't answer. I clicked next file. Footage, 4:16 a.m. Vivica. Alone. In the study. No lights. She's burning papers. Not just burning, shredding, lighting, flushing fragments down the toilet. Martin's voice was grim. She's trying to clean. Too late. She knows something's coming. That photo you found? The woman in it, we have a name. He slid a printed background check across the desk. Name, Georgia Parnell. D.O.B., 1961. Formerly, Georgia Klein. Employment, Executive Assistant to L.H. Harper Holdings, 1985 to 1990. Resigned abruptly. No severance. No references. I read the next line. Known alias, Georgia Cross. Cross. Emerson. I looked up. He's her father? Martin nodded. Biologically? We don't know. But they've been connected for decades. And she was. Your father's mistress, he said. Before he met Octavia. Before Vivica. I dropped the paper. Vivica wasn't Arthur's daughter. But she was someone's. Emerson's eyes. Her ruthlessness. It clicked. Why would he stay silent? I asked. Why serve the family he betrayed? Martin took a long breath. Because he was never serving Arthur. He was waiting for Vivica's turn. That night, I walked through the gardens. Fog rolled in thick, wrapping the hedges in white. I wasn't alone. Someone was behind me. Too quiet for a guard. Too heavy for a deer. I ducked into the greenhouse. Glass fogged. Breath caught in my throat. A reflection moved in the panel to my left. I turned. No one. I moved deeper in. Behind the hanging vines. Another step. Another. Crack. The floorboard. Too late. The glass shattered above me, a pot dropped from the rafters. Missed by inches. I dove, rolled. Silence. I grabbed the flashlight, cut through the plants. Gone. Only one exit. They'd vanished. But they left something. A note taped to the side of the sprinkler tank. 5 words. Some blood was never yours. They knew what I knew. And they were trying to erase it. But it wasn't just about keeping Vivica in. It was about keeping someone else out. And I was starting to think I wasn't the only heir at stake. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink. When someone tries to kill you with a falling pot and a cryptic note, rest becomes optional. I printed the surveillance stills. Labeled the names. Circled timestamps. Then I grabbed my phone and called someone I never thought I'd speak to again. Detective Nolan Bird. He picked up on the second ring. Still efficient. Still clipped. You're not dead yet, he said. Not for lack of trying. You've got 90 seconds. I need a trace on a woman. Georgia Cross, formerly Parnell. Connected to the Langford estate. Silence. Then a whistle. You're calling me about ghosts now? I think she's alive. And I think she's Vivica's real mother. That's not news, Nolan said. That's a war declaration. Click. I met Martin in the wine cellar. No surveillance there. Just the scent of old oak and betrayal. She's moving money, he said. I blinked. Vivica? He nodded. She's initiating wire transfers from Harper Family Trusts to a private account in Dubai. We flagged them late. She masked it under emergency liquidity shifts. How much? He hesitated. 30 million. So far. I almost laughed. And no one stopped her? She has 2 board members in her pocket. Emerson's behind both. I clenched my fists. They think I'm too distracted to notice. That I'm just here for my name on a paper. Martin leaned in. Then give them a show. Let them believe it. We staged a family brunch the next morning. Catered. Fresh flowers. 2 photographers from Air and Estate Weekly, Vivica's favorite outlet. She showed up in white. Of course. Peace offering, she said, placing a gift box in front of me. Silver ribbon. No card. I didn't touch it. Emerson sat at the head of the table. Like he owned it. Fiona and Emmett smiled too wide, their forks barely scraping the plates. Fake peace. Vivica leaned closer. You know, Dawes, there's a kind of freedom in not being bound by blood. It lets you design your own legacy. I smiled. Or rewrite someone else's. She raised her glass. To family. However we define it. I raised mine. To consequences. However they arrive. Click. Photographer snapped the moment. Cut. Later that night, the gift box sat untouched in my room. I opened it. A single item inside. A thumb drive. And a note. Play at your own risk. I plugged it into the secure laptop Martin set up. Encrypted video. Timestamp, 2002. Grainy. Night vision filter. I saw Arthur. Younger. In a hospital room. Georgia Parnell lay unconscious. Hooked to machines. A baby in the incubator beside her. Vivica. Arthur stared at the child. Then the door opened. Emerson. He walked in. Tense. Arthur turned. You said she'd be safe. She is, Emerson replied. But she can't stay here. Arthur lowered his voice. She's your daughter. Emerson looked away. She's ours now. Arthur, this isn't what we agreed. Emerson, she has your last name. That's all the world needs. Arthur looked back at the child. And what about Dawes? Emerson, he won't remember this. The screen went black. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. Vivica was a fabrication. A hand-stitched legacy built from silence, surgery, and social engineering. And I'd been the insurance policy. The decoy. I'd spent years wondering why I didn't belong, but the truth wasn't that I didn't fit in. It was that I was never meant to survive long enough to ask why. I drove to the Attorney General's office at dawn. I handed them everything. The DNA. The transfers. The video. They didn't blink. Do you want this to go public? The clerk asked. Not yet, I said. Let them sweat first. They nodded. We'll issue a sealed injunction. She won't know until we move. I exhaled. But something felt off. The building was quiet. Too quiet. On the way out, I caught a glimpse of a figure in the parking lot. A woman. Wearing black gloves. Watching me. Then gone. Back at the manor, my room was ransacked. Drawers open. Files missing. The laptop gone. Only one thing remained. A single sheet of paper taped to the mirror. My childhood handwriting. From a journal I hadn't seen in 20 years. Dad says secrets only hurt if you believe they're true. But this one wasn't a memory. It was a message. Whoever did this had been in my past long before I'd ever left. The public ballroom was silent. Vivica stood in the center, wearing a crimson dress too loud for a morning hearing. Flashbulbs popped. Reporters whispered. AMC executives lined the back wall like vultures at a wake. I stepped onto the stage with a sealed folder in my hands and the Attorney General's staff at my back. This wasn't just an inheritance dispute anymore. This was conspiracy. Fraud. Identity tampering. Multi-million-dollar laundering. And if the court ruled in our favor, prison time. Vivica tried to smile, but her lip twitched. Her eyes darted to Emerson. He didn't look back. I opened the folder. These documents confirm a sustained, coordinated attempt to conceal the identity of the rightful heir to the Langford estate. The DNA test my sister demanded was her biggest mistake. It proved what she feared most. She's not Arthur Langford's daughter. I am. Gasps. One flashbulb burst. I dropped the second bomb. Along with these records are financial transfers, $38 million, siphoned into accounts registered in the Cayman Islands and Dubai. The recipient? One Georgia Cross. A woman listed deceased 23 years ago. Except she isn't. A second screen lit up behind me. Grainy footage. Georgia Cross stepping out of a car at a remote airport 2 weeks ago. Alive. Healthy. Protected. Vivica swayed. Martin caught her elbow, too late. She dropped to her knees. A dozen voices erupted. The court stenographer stopped typing. The judge banged her gavel. Outside, sirens cut through the morning fog. You know what they say, I muttered. Truth always finds the crack. They arrested Emerson first. Wire fraud. Obstruction. Tampering with legal guardianship records. AMC's board voted him out within the hour. Martin was named interim CEO. He didn't smile. Neither did I. Vivica didn't fight extradition. She asked for one thing, to speak to me. I met her at the detention center 2 days later. Behind glass. No jewelry. No makeup. No mask. Her voice cracked. They told me you were the mistake. I didn't answer. She leaned forward. I was supposed to be the face. You were the cover. They lied to both of us. Vivica shook her head. No. They lied to you. I helped them. Then she slid something across the partition. A photo. Of us. Young. Laughing. A 4th of July picnic. Before everything. I wasn't always a monster. I stared at the image. No one is. Until they believe they deserve more than someone else. She whispered, you won't forgive me. I'm not here for that. What, then? To end it. Months passed. The hearings concluded. The estate was awarded to me. But I didn't want it. Not all of it. I set up a foundation in Arthur's name. Mental health support. DNA rights advocacy. A scholarship fund for underrepresented students in law and medicine. Because legacies aren't built on dollars. They're built on who you protect when the lights go out. Martin took a step back from AMC. He's rebuilding trust, slowly. Some days I wonder if he'll stay. Some days I hope he doesn't. Emerson pled guilty. 22 years. Vivica got 15. With parole, maybe 10. She writes me sometimes. I don't reply. But I keep the letters. Not out of guilt. Out of memory. Because we're all mirrors of each other, broken differently, but reflecting something real. And sometimes, when the world shatters around you, the only thing sharper than the truth is the silence after it's spoken. But there's power in surviving what was meant to bury you. And I've never been more alive.